Beyond the Hype, a fashion lifestyle tech podcast. Presented by Stephanie Williams and Greg Lewis.
All right, everyone, get ready, because today we're diving headfirst into the world of play-to-earn games.
Yes.
These games, they promise us this enticing idea. What if you could earn while you game?
That's right.
What if all that time you spent grinding for XP could actually translate to some, real-world reward?
And that's exactly what we're going to be unpacking today. We're going beyond just like the hype.
Yeah.
We're really going to be taking a look at the tech behind it, the economics, what makes these games tick. Are they built to last, or are they just a flash in the pan?
Exactly. And we're also going to be looking at whether this whole earn while you game thing, is it actually sustainable?
Right.
Or is it just, another one of those internet fads that comes and goes?
Yeah.
You've probably seen the headlines, Axie Infinity.
Yes.
Those cute little NFT creatures that people were, making millions off of. But then just as quickly as they blew up, those same games, poof, gone.
Right. They faded away.
So what's going on? What's happening behind the scenes? And is it actually possible to design a game, a P2E game, where both players and the in-game economy, they both can thrive at the same time?
Well, and that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think a lot of it really comes down to this concept of tokenomics.
Okay.
Right. It's not enough to just, slap a cryptocurrency onto a game and call it a day.
So let's break that down a little bit. For those of us, myself potentially included, who haven't quite wrapped our heads around this whole tokenomics thing, what's like the simplest way to understand how it all works?
Sure. So imagine it like this. Every P2E game is essentially like its own little mini country. Okay. It has its own currency. And those in-game tokens that you're earning, those are essentially the currency of that game. And just like in the real world, the value of that currency, it depends on a number of things. It depends on how many people are using it, what you can actually buy with it, and even how the game itself is designed.
So it's not as easy as just like you earn the tokens, you sell it for cash, and then profit.
There's more to it.
It's a lot more to it. And that's where things get really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I think, a lot of the early P2E games, they really focused on that first part, right?
Yeah.
They focused on rewarding players with tokens.
Okay.
Do this, earn a token, do that, earn a token. But they forgot about the other side of the equation, which is, well, what can you actually do with those tokens within the game world itself?
So it's almost like just printing a ton of money, but not having enough, goods and services to actually spend it on.
Right.
Cue the inflation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we saw with games like Axie Infinity, right?
Yeah.
Remember when their AXS token, it went up to $160?
Yeah. It felt like everyone and their grandma was trying to breed digital Axies at that point. Yeah, it was crazy. But as more and more of these tokens were created, and players were basically just cashing out as quickly as they could, the price inevitably came crashing down.
Right.
And so it's just a classic case of, too much supply, not enough demand.
Okay, so we've got this balancing act, right, between earning, spending, supply, and demand. It's starting to sound a lot like, real economics.
It is.
Is that part of what makes these P2E economies so volatile, would you say?
It definitely plays a part, right? But here's the thing. You also have to remember that, the cryptocurrency market itself, it's incredibly volatile.
Yeah.
Right? And most of these P2E tokens, they're built on blockchain networks like Ethereum.
Right.
So their value is also being influenced by everything else that's happening in the crypto world. And as we've seen, it can be a pretty wild ride.
It's like trying to balance on a surfboard, but during a tsunami. You've got the inherent challenges of the game's economy, but then you've got these unpredictable waves of the crypto market crashing all around you.
That's a perfect analogy. And I think it really highlights this point that just trying to, just copy and paste traditional economic models into the P2E space, it might not be the answer. We might need to come up with new solutions that take advantage of the unique opportunities.
Right.
But also consider the inherent risks of this new world.
So are there any P2E games out there that Like, are they getting it right?
Yeah.
Are there any that are like building these really strong economies that can last?
Yeah, absolutely. There are some really, really interesting projects out there that are experimenting with like new models. For example, some games are even starting to incorporate elements of DeFi, decentralized finance, into their games.
DeFi, now that's a whole other rabbit hole for another day.
Oh, yeah.
But in the context of P2E, like, what does that actually look like?
So imagine being able to like stake your tokens, your in-game tokens, and earn interest on them, right?
Okay.
Just like you would with a savings account.
Right.
Or think about games where they're governed by DAOs, by these decentralized autonomous organizations. So the players actually have a say.
Wow.
In how the game's economy evolves.
So it's about like giving players more ownership.
Yes, exactly.
More control, not just treating them like, digital miners.
Exactly. And this is what's so exciting, because by changing that focus, right?
Yeah.
From just how quickly can we get people to cash out to how do we get them to participate, that opens up all sorts of possibilities for creating these P2E ecosystems that are both profitable and sustainable.
This is what I love about these deep dives. You start with like a simple question.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, we're like down this rabbit hole of all these fascinating possibilities. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's rewind a bit. We talked about Axie Infinity, their rise and fall. Are there any other like case studies that you think really highlight the challenges, but also the potential of P2E?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about, have you heard of Alien Worlds?
Okay, yeah. Alien Worlds.
Okay.
Now, this one always felt like it had, I don't know, a different vibe.
Totally.
Right? Like less about battling cutesy creatures and more about, space exploration, planet mining, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely had that like space kind of theme to it, and it really took off. Alien Worlds, it blew up in popularity because it promised this idea of, mining for their in-game token, which is called Trillium or TLM.
ELMI.
Right. And it really tapped into this whole idea of like digital scarcity, right? You've got these virtual planets, they have resources, and players are all like vying for control.
So it wasn't just about, like you said, earning the tokens through gameplay. It was like owning a little piece of the game world itself.
Exactly. And that's a really key distinction. Alien Worlds, at least, in theory, it was designed around this idea of like player ownership.
Okay.
And even governance, right? Players could stake their TLM, their Trillium, to like vote on proposals, decisions that would actually impact how the game was developed.
So they have that whole like DAO thing going on.
Yeah.
Giving players like a real voice.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds promising. But what happened? Did they manage to like avoid the same problems that we saw with Axie?
Well, so not entirely. I mean, they did some things differently, right?
Okay.
But they still ran into some of those same tokenomic hurdles that we were talking about. See, even with the planet ownership, the governance stuff, a lot of TLM's value was still tied to like its exchange rate.
Right.
Like what it was worth on, cryptocurrency exchanges. And as more and more players joined, drawn in by that promise of, hey, you can earn money playing this game.
Right.
We started to see that familiar pattern emerge again.
Too much supply.
Yeah.
The price drops, the bubble bursts.
Exactly. You got it. So the influx of new players, everyone mining TLM, it led to inflation, and inevitably the token's value took a hit. Now, to be fair, Alien Worlds is still around.
Right.
They've got a dedicated community of players.
Right.
But I think it serves as a really good example, or even a cautionary tale that even when you have like innovative mechanics,
right,
just getting that sustainability right, like really nailing it in the P2E space, it requires a much, much deeper understanding of how all these pieces fit together.
So we've talked about the challenges, right? We've got inflation, oversupply, this constant like balancing acts between, what players are earning, what they're spending. But let's get practical for a second. Like, what are some things that developers can actually do?
Yeah.
To build P2E economies that can actually last? Like, give us the inside scoop.
Okay, so if you want to build a P2E economy that lasts, one word: Utility. You have to give those in-game tokens, those, digital assets, you got to give them real, tangible value within the game world itself. That's how you build something that lasts.
Okay, so you're saying it's not enough for a token to just be like a reward.
Right.
Or just a way to like cash out. It needs to actually do something in the game.
Exactly. What if you could take those tokens that you're earning and you could use them to like unlock new levels?
Okay.
Or buy like rare items, things that actually give you an advantage in the game.
Right.
Or even like purchase virtual land that generates like passive income within the game world.
So instead of just hoping that token goes up in value on like some exchange somewhere, you actually have a reason to hold on to it.
Yeah.
Because it's useful in the game.
Exactly. It creates this natural demand.
Right.
People actually want to hold on to these tokens. They want to use them. And that's how you start to like, fight back against some of that inflationary pressure.
So it's almost like you're not just copying, like a real world economy. You're creating like this whole new economy.
Yeah.
Where the currency actually has value because it's used for things.
Exactly. And that's what I think is so cool about this whole space.
Yeah.
Is that we're not just like replicating these old models. We're inventing entirely new ways of like, creating value, interacting with digital stuff. It's a new frontier.
It's like this fusion of like gaming and finance and a little bit of like social experiment all mixed into one.
It really is.
But it's easy to get caught up in all the hype.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And that's why I think it's so important to approach this whole P2E space, with a little bit of with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right.
Right? Not every game that comes along promising, riches is going to make you rich, but the ones that get it right.
Yeah.
The ones that really nail that balance of, it's got to be fun to play.
Right.
But it also has to be sustainable. Those are the ones to watch.
So, okay, let's say someone is listening to this right now. They're developing a game.
Yeah.
They're taking all this to heart. What should they be focusing on? Like, what are the key things?
All right, so you want the secret sauce.
Give me the secret sauce. How do you create a P2E game that doesn't just, promise the world, but actually delivers?
Okay, well, first of all, you have to ditch that whole get-rich-quick mentality altogether.
Okay.
The most successful P2E games, they're going to be designed with longevity in mind. That means you have to make a game that's actually fun to play, even if you take out all the, financial incentives.
Right, yeah, it's got to be a game first.
Yeah.
But how do you actually, make the economics work over time?
Well, it all starts with, understand tokenomics.
Okay.
And I don't just mean like the basics. I'm talking about, really understanding token distribution.
Okay.
How many tokens are out there? What are the burning mechanisms?
Right.
So you can, control the supply. And then most importantly, how do all the things you do in the game, how do those translate to actual value for the token?
So it's almost like you're designing like a whole financial system, but it's for like this virtual world.
Exactly. And just like in the real world, you got to have checks and balances, right? You got to make sure it's all working in sync. One concept that I think is really interesting is this idea of play and earn rather than just play to earn.
Okay, play and earn. What's the difference?
So it's a subtle difference, but I think it's an important one.
Okay.
Because, play to earn sometimes it can feel like a grind. It's like, how fast can I extract value from this game?
Right.
Whereas play and earn, it's more about, the enjoyment, right? You're playing the game because it's fun.
Right.
And you also happen to be earning something along the way.
So it's more like, it's not just about chasing the rewards.
Okay.
It's about creating a world where earning is just like a natural part of playing the game.
That's it. That's exactly it. You want it to feel like a natural part of the experience. You're building this ecosystem that's sustainable,
right,
where the players are happy, the economy is healthy, and the developers, they can keep making the game better.
This has been a real eye-opener, I gotta say. I mean, we've gone way beyond just, play games, make money. There's so much more to it.
Yeah.
So for our listeners out there, what's the one thing you hope they take away from this conversation?
I would say, P2E gaming, it's still early days, right? It's like, think of the early days of the internet.
Okay, yeah.
There's a lot of potential, but there's also a lot of risk.
So a little bit of caution is a good thing.
Absolutely. I mean, don't just jump into any game that promises you, the moon. Look for games that are really prioritizing their community, games where the developers are being transparent, they're communicating with the players, and most importantly, look for games that have a real plan for the long term.
Solid advice. Do your research.
Exactly.
Don't just chase the hype train. Well, this has been another fascinating deep dive, I've got to say.
It's been fun.
And for you, our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this journey into the exciting world of play-to-earn games. We'll see you next time for another deep dive. Until then, keep exploring, and maybe we'll see you in the metaverse.
Beyond the Hype, a fashion lifestyle tech podcast.